Hey friends, thank you for spending a couple of minutes with me today. As you look back at the happenings of the past week, chances are there are things that you need more time to complete. There are projects maybe that are causing you to struggle, or even projects that you've had on your radar and you just can't seem to get to. Believe me, you're not alone. Sometimes the demands of leadership are overwhelming. If you're like me, I often find that people and their needs pull me away from the plans that I have and the projects that I feel God's directed me to complete. Now, don't misunderstand me. I know that helping people is my ultimate job as a leader for God's kingdom. But the reality is that sometimes I struggle to keep this in perspective as I look at the tasks of the mission. The tasks are the tangible, measurable goals that others will see of my life. They are the things by which someone else will either judge me successful or unsuccessful. Friends, this is a place where it's easy to fall prey to the enemy's lies. See, when we begin to long for the approval from men, even good men, the approval of God becomes less important. And this is dangerous, because when God is not where we are seeking our approval, then God will not fill us with His power. It is only in God's power that we will ever accomplish the great works that He has planned. In 2 Kings chapter 13, verses 20 and 21, there's an amazing story of Elisha that you don't hear very often. Now remember, Elisha was the man that God chose to take the place of the prophet Elijah. He was a farmer by trade. He left his known profession to become a servant of Elijah, and in the position of servant, he learned to trust God. And when Elijah was being taken to heaven in the fiery chariot, Elisha boldly asked God for a double portion of his spirit. Basically, he asked God to use him in unexplainable ways for His glory, and God did. Now we're going to pick up in verse 20, which is actually at Elisha's death. Verse 20 says this, it says, Elisha died, and they placed him in a burial cave. Now the raiding parties of Moab used to take yearly incursions into the land at the start of the year. This is verse 21, listen. It says, once it happened that just as they were burying a man, they spotted a raiding party, so they threw the man's body into Elisha's burial cave. And the moment the man touched the bones of Elisha, he revived and he stood on his feet. Don't miss this. This man was dead. And still there was such a power of God on his life that another man's bones, his dead body, had only to touch his bones and it came back to life. Can you imagine that kind of power on your life? See, God wants to do so much through your life, but it requires that, like Elisha, you let go of you, your goals, your desires, your accomplishments, your life, and allow God to do whatever He wants. So this week, as those feelings of anxiety or inadequacy begin to surface, ask yourself, is this ministry that God has allowed me to lead so utterly powered by Him that if I were not a part of it, if I were dead, would His power still be at work? If the answer is no, then I encourage you to spend less time worried about the task and more time pursuing His power, because it is in your weakness that He really is strong.